All right. Hi. I'm going to react to the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 narrative an RPG stream that happened on Halloween. I have also done the dev diary and I've also done an article. So if you want to check out those videos, they should also be up and available for more information about this upcoming game. So without further ado, let us get to reacting, shall we?
Good evening, Kindred, and welcome to this Halloween special where we are going to give you what you want. You will get Bloodlines 2 sneak previews. We will talk about character. We will talk about narrative. We will talk to the Chinese Room.
Hello folks, I'm Ian. I'm narrative director at the Chinese Room. I've been in video games for about 30 years and film and TV, spending a lot of time around detective stories and horror. In particular, you might have played Amnesia Rebirth, which I was story lead for. But tonight we're talking about something different.
So
we're
another
going to
Bloodlines 2
be looking
thing.
slightly into the future.
And I'm Sean Graney, Executive Vice President for World of Darkness at Paradox Interactive. I've been with this project since 2017. I've been working with all of our World of Darkness projects, and I got into Vampire the Masquerade at a very uncomfortably early age, and it's been with me since then.
Yeah, I spent most of the early 90s with
early.
Vampire 1st and 2nd edition, and I still have scars.
So, why don't we get to what the people want and take a look at our character?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to look at a short video now, and we're going to step till into the future in 2024, around about Christmas, to the Glacier Hotel in Seattle, and watch.
So the game is still taking place around Christmas time, I'm assuming that means. Okay, Fabian is the voice in our head.
I assume, of course, that you know who I am. So the question is, who are you?
You can call me Phyre. I seek an audience with the Prince of Seattle. I've been led to believe you can
That
help.
voice acting is stiff. Also, the facial animations are really bad.
Prince?
That's my business.
Now, Phyre, that is not a fair exchange. You came to me, after all. Do try and play along, darling. It's so boring otherwise. Let's try again. Who are you, really?
Someone rudely awoken from 100-year sleep, covered in thin blood vitae, with this mark on my hand, and no explanation why. I want answers.
Well, if that's all you wanted,
I will say,
why didn't you just say?
Unlike
So
Cyberpunk,
you'll help?
because I had heard people were saying that this was going to be like Cyberpunk, like the protagonist from first person. It looks like unlike Cyberpunk, you're not doing a first-person conversation like from V's perspective. You're kind of watching a back and forth.
So we met two people there. We met the person who we were
I know that I know who Lou is. It looks like they've kind of kept the original idea of Lou. I'm not sure how I feel about Phyre.
Our protagonist.
That voice acting was pretty stiff, and I think they also need to work on those facial animations.
Phyre is an elder kindred. Phyre has been asleep for around 100 years and
I read an article
into modern day or slightly near
detailing
future.
that she was they were going to be an elder.
There are huge consequences to dropping an elder into a kindred city. Most games, we play a newbie. In all sorts of different RPGs, we play a newbie who is learning the ropes of the world. Phyre is different. Phyre is old, experienced. She's a hunter. She's a stalker. She knows how to be a vampire.
He keeps using she, which I understand because we just saw the female model. But I'm wondering, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey,
About how we're
Cassandra was always considered the real protagonist. So I'm wondering if female protagonist is what they're considering
from a game
to be their idea of the.
Yeah, there's a couple of really interesting things going on here. So firstly, it's the normal journey of an RPG character to gain
That's
power
not to say
over
that
time,
you
but we're
can't
starting
play
with a certain
male
level of
Phyre.
power. You have impact
You
from
get
the
to
very
choose
beginning.
your gender.
Phyre isn't at her full power, hasn't recovered.
Hopefully the male voice actor is better because,
that
again,
don't want to spoil,
so far the female
that
one,
means she is effectively bound. She's in a bad situation. You may have seen that mark on her hand. That is a puzzle for her. It's a problem for her. It's something she's trying to solve. So the player journey, the character
apparently that was made out of thin blood
is
vitae.
about regaining.
So I'm wondering if some thin blood
what she once was.
stuff's going
having
on with the
making a big change to Seattle for reasons which I hope will become
specific
clear.
stuff.
So this is the inverse of Bloodlines 1
I
in
wonder
some
if
ways.
Lilith is still
in
going
Bloodlines
to
1,
be a
you awake as a fairly
antagonist.
unimportant vampire. You are used as a pawn by a number
From what
of
I'm
different
hearing
LA
and seeing,
vampires.
it looks like the
Here we'll be
original
awakening
idea
as an elder
has been totally
in
revamped
Seattle,
and unintended.
trying to get their bearings, I'm assuming.
Totally new story,
Yeah,
essentially.
that's right. So this isn't a blank slate of a character. It's worth saying. Obviously, you can customize it. There'll be a choice of clans. There'll be a choice of outfits, a choice of gender. And as the gameplay goes through,
there's the gender.
it's
And the
up
choice
to
of
you.
clan.
Elements of her background.
So I guess you get to choose
are
your
up to
clan
you
early
to
on
choose, and
instead
what
of
she
the original
reveals to other
idea was
people.
you would
and what story she's telling, whether she's telling them
get
a fantasy,
start
or
as
whether
thin
she's
blood
telling
and
them
then
the truth.
choose who you're
But
going to
there's a certain
diabolize to
commonality,
join that
which
clan.
is she stepped into a place she doesn't know and she can't grasp yet. At a time, she doesn't know and can grasp. So, like the protagonist of Bloodlines 1, she will have to learn what the situation is, who the major personalities are.
I wouldn't
and how
compare
she
the
can deal with it.
protagonist of
But how
Bloodlines
does
1
this
to
not
an
all come
elder
apart
that's
when
dropped
she
in a
opens the
city.
laptop or sees a pedestrian crossing?
I will
She
say
doesn't
that
understand the modern world.
the Bloodlines
but,
1
as you may have
protagonist
seen in
is
that
very
last video,
powerful,
she's not
and that's
entirely
always been
alone. The Mark has
theorized
done
that they
something very
were
strange to
lower
her. She
gen
doesn't understand
blood,
it at the start of the game.
or
But she
sorry,
is hearing another voice.
but lower gen.
It is the voice
And
of a character called Fabian. Fabian is a modern thin blood
I don't know.
vampire
I don't.
from
They don't.
Seattle.
But you don't start as an
He has
elder,
ended
right?
up
You're still the new kid on the
inside
block.
Phyre in a way that will be explained in the gameplay.
So Fabian was the
And
voice in
he
our head,
is
and we
trapped
heard Fabian
inside her.
talking
She is trapped
to
with
Phyre
him.
in
The
that clip.
two together have to navigate their way through this world. They may hate each other. They may grow to like each other. They may carry on hating each other all the way through, but they are bound together. He has an idea about how modern kindred work. He doesn't have the experience that Phyre does of vampire society, but he's got a pretty good view, so he can help her. He can guide her through Seattle. He can also, because he is a thin blood, he has access to things and an understanding of things that the elder vampire doesn't. So really, this is the story of the two of them and how they
I'm gonna pause real
navigate.
quick. So it sounds like from what he's saying there, if I caught this right, Fabian is a thin blood in our head who is helping us navigate the world, and he's saying here that Phyre, is an old vampire, an elder vampire who wouldn't really understand the modern world. So Fabian kind of helps her navigate that, while Fabian doesn't really understand apparently vampire politicking and the struggle. So it sounds like we're going to be using each other, which in the world of darkness, no one's ever really helping you out of their own gain or without, something of their own to gain. So I'm going to guess that Fabian isn't going to be all he turns out to be as a friend, but we'll have to wait and see and play the game. Again, so far, the facial animations definitely are giving me pause, and so is the voice acting, along with the idea that he's trying to say, like, Bloodlines 1, you're a new kid on the block, but you're not. You're an elder, and I don't know how I feel about that because in Bloodlines 1, when you have, not even Bloodlines 1, but in RPGs, when you have that new kid on the block narrative, um, it's so that people who are coming in can kind of understand, the world slowly and learn. Meanwhile, you have people who are more or less familiar with the lore and the world standing, so they can just kind of grasp and build and mold a character they want to play, which it sounds like they're going to let us play Phyre how we want to, but at the same time, Phyre has their own backstory. They have their own motivations before they were awoken. So I guess we're going to uncover that, but that I feel like takes a bit of the ownership from the player away from that. Does that make sense? It's as though the character is not fully yours. It will never really be yours. You just kind of mold the character. While I like Cyberpunk and I like V and I like the idea of playing V, V never felt like my character. I just felt like I was in a story and I kind of directed V where to go. And that's what this is kind of giving me too. So, as someone who's an RPG purist and who has just gotten off, 200 hours of Baldur's Gate 3, I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't. Anyways, back to the video.
their way through this situation and how they affect Seattle.
Will there be an ongoing evolution in our relationships with these characters, and can we affect that?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, that's the meat of the game for Phyre, is that she is having to deal with a society of kindred, and she has to decide how to deal with them, because they all have different objectives, different goals, and a different relationship to Phyre. It's unlike the sort of game where you might play a Paragon or a Renegade, or a light side or dark side.
That was a Mass Effect
because Phyre has
reference.
to look at each person
Also a Star Wars
figure out
reference.
how to work.
Kind of poking BioWare here, I think. Interesting.
Whether she
take.
goes, I am an elder, you have to do what I say.
Bar's kind of low for BioWare, so I feel like if you're trying to say we're better than the BioWare games,
all those relationships,
well, the bar's already pretty low there, buddy. That's
differently because
not very impressive.
Treats them differently, and then the core feature of all this will be the relationship between her and Fabian. The two are caught together. Phyre is the only person who can hear Fabian. Fabian can't interact with anybody else. He sees everything that she does, and he sees.
Yeah, he's trapped. I guess is what he was saying. Is what he was saying earlier.
really
Fabian is trapped, and Phyre's got to get him out.
And for fans of Bloodlines 1 and Vampire the Masquerade as a franchise, what will Fabian offer as far as feeding back that kind of information to the player?
Well, the two talk through the whole game, and then as the story develops,
Fabian's going to be with us for the whole game, apparently.
The effects that she has and the effects that Fabian has on her, really, she's an elder vampire. She spent a lot of time not really thinking about humans as anything other than prey, really. She's distanced from that. In the same way that we as players are often quite distanced from violence in games and from the strange in games. Fabian is much more grounded. He's much more human, and really we're playing off the contrast between the two, the contrast between the elder and the younger, the contrast between the olden times and the new times, and how the two interact. So he's
real quick. So it sounds like, again, more or less, the idea of the new kid on the block from Bloodlines 1 is Fabian meets the idea, oh, why is this character so powerful? This makes no sense in lore, because that is also, again, a big discourse I've noticed with the Bloodlines 1 fan base, is why is, the kindred so powerful? So it sounds like this is kind of like a way to balance and explain both of those. You're playing an elder, so of course you're going to be powerful. And then you have Fabian, who's kind of directing you and showing you like the modern world. And the elder also understands vampire politicking. So it sounds like they're just kind of trying to combo those two archetypes together. Sure, go ahead. Again, though, it makes me a little hesitant on how I feel about it. But at the same time, I didn't really want to play a Thin Blood. So I guess there we have it, right?
It's very much an anchor for her, I think it's fair to say, and very much a compass for her if she chooses to pay attention.
A compass. So
And
I
so
guess
for
because
fans
he's
of
probably
the-
got more
of the
humanity since we're
IP
an
and also
elder.
the original game, Fabian will sort of play this role of explaining to the character how humane they are.
I guess that's part of it. Yeah, Fabian's got many roles. He's a very
So Fabian's
rounded
like
character.
the angel in our shoulder.
It's also worth
I
bearing in
guess.
mind that it's not just going to be fans of the franchise who play this game. So new players are going to want to learn about the world. Fabian knows about some of it. Phyre knows about a lot more of it. But the way the two talk about it and the way the two discuss it will help us open that window.
So yeah, like I said, they're trying to
and
combine
tutorialize it to a certain extent.
the
I think.
problem
And also
that the
how
first game
powers work
had
and how
into two
powers
characters,
interact with other
essentially.
characters in the world. That somebody needs to know that stuff, and some players won't. And so the interplay between the two characters helps us with that.
So Fabian sounds like a very interesting character. How will players be able to customize their narrative experience with Phyre as the protagonist?
So, as we talked about earlier, you have options. You have clan choices that affects, for example, the powers that you have. Although, again, the story gives us a bit more opportunity to play around with that. It's a bit more flexible because of the presence of things like Thin Bloods. There's the interactivity with all of the characters you talk to, the choices you make with those characters. And then there's the wider city, Seattle itself, and how Phyre
So it sounds like
deals with the citizens.
I don't know if we're getting
of
Nosferatu
Seattle.
then,
And as a predator,
because
there are times
Nosferatu,
when she is
you
going
know,
to want
if you're a
to
fan,
feed, gain
are
power
all disfigured.
from some of the citizens
On Embrace.
and hunt. And this will affect how Fire's
So if we were able to play a
powers
Nosferatu
change
Elder,
as the game
would we be able to
changes.
customize
And
our
that depends on how
deformities
she
and
treats those citizens. If
our
she
character
approaches
in
them
that sort of way?
as a bully trying to push
Nice to
them into
know.
a certain reaction, then that
Or
might
if
work. That
playing,
might not work.
say,
It might scare them
Malkavian
off. Something else might happen.
will give you a different
It
narrative
also depends
experience.
how she looks.
Since
If
Nate
she's dressed
Fabian
as
will be a
one
voice
type
in
of
your
character,
head, will
somebody
you
may
have
have a
other
very different
voices, or will he be the
reaction
only
to
one?
her,
You know?
compared to if she dressed like another.
And so it sounds like you're hinting at a system that we have in Vampire the Masquerade, resonance, which is the emotional state of dinner.
Of course, resonance is still
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
play.
It's important.
I'm not
to
the biggest
Fire,
fan of resonance, but I'm
sometimes
also a
what the
diehard
resonance
V20
of
fan.
the
But
character she's feeding
yeah,
off
resonance has
is,
just never
and
been
she can push that, and she
big,
can change that, or
big win
attempt
for
to.
me.
It might not work. As I said, it depends how you're dressed, depends who the character is, and what they feel about how you've approached them.
Players will have
Depends on
options
how you're
to
dressed. What
choose
does that
outfits,
mean?
and
Yes.
those outfits will have a narrative and dialogue impact.
Yes, yes.
If I come in a
absolutely. Because
potato
people
sack, will I be
recognise you as a
treated
different
less
thing
than?
depending on what you're wearing?
Depending on
Very,
what I'm
very
wearing.
cool.
Okay, yeah. So be
So let
fashionable,
us return
kindred.
to Seattle and another sneak peek.
It's you. The nomad.
Willem, I take it. You had some interesting guests outside. Expecting trouble?
That depends. Why are you here?
Earlier tonight, another kindred by the name of Isabella used this mark to sap my power. Do you know anything about it?
Ooh,
No,
Isabella.
No. All I had to do was keep my head down
New
for
name.
just a few more nights. He's hiding something.
Tell me, Willem, what rumors have you heard about me?
The facial
You were there
animations
in
are so
Cairo.
bad.
They called you the Slayer.
I have been many things to many people, and what will I be to you, Willem? And to this lonely, forgotten warehouse?
You're exactly what he said you'd be. I guess that makes it easier.
Makes what easier?
What happens next?
So vampires aren't
Okay.
traditional.
So, real quick, let's just kind of go back a little bit. I don't
About it?
No.
I don't like the facial animations. I really don't. I'm going to guess this is, of course, a Nosferatu character. So, again, are we getting Nosferatu? Is Nosferatu a plan? Because obviously, they're disfigured. But on top of that, I guess this is kind of like the vanilla, let's see, face for Fire. And I'm also, I don't know, I just don't like the voice acting's very stiff sounding to me. And I get that because maybe the director, because usually when you're voice acting, you have a director. There's definitely got to be a director for this game. And they tell you you're an elder. You're an elder from this century and you've woken up in a new world, but you're a cold-hearted vampire. Like you are a vampire. So I can get where this kind of like very lifeless kind of I am an old being, I'm above this tone is coming from. But at the same time, it's not that fun. It's not that I don't know, it's not really giving me a lot of character. It's very stiff. And I get that. It's because you're supposed to imprint your character on top of this one by dressing him or her up and customizing them how you want them to look. But they're always going to sound this way. That's the problem with a voice protagonist. They are always going to sound this way unless you give us multiple voices to pick from. And I don't think they're going to do that. So again, I am a little disappointed because even though V was a voice protagonist, the voice actors for V were, they added some character there. But this, I just don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. And I want to like it. I want to.
What happens next?
So vampires aren't traditionally paragons of truth. And I think here when we're talking to Willem, we can see that Phyre is more interested in pushing her agenda than necessarily being completely accurate about her biography. So what do these kinds of decisions mean for the dialogue and the story arc if you decide to tell Willem about your killer reputation versus take another route?
So this is one of the advantages of playing an Elder. You have a history. You've been heard of before. Phyre has this legend associated with it. There are several legends, a whole collection of legends. Which of those are true? is to a certain extent a decision for the player. We're leaving that deliberately. Was she at this particular incident? Did she cause the incident? Was she escaping the incident? And the variety of different background choices which we feed into it, a little bit like the way that Commander Shepard in Mass Effect has a series of background choices.
There's
Although
again
that's slightly
the
more
Bioware
complicated.
reference.
But that means that when she approaches people in Seattle, they may have heard of her and they may have some idea what she did. And that
Jennifer Hale is a
can be a
fucking icon,
scary,
though. You're
legend,
not going to top that
or
with
it can
whatever
give you a
voice
bit more
acting you
nuance
got
to it.
going here.
I like to think of her as the Wild West movies where the gunslinger comes to town, who people know the reputation, and that makes them approach things in a very different way when they suddenly realize who they're up against. And that is the weightiness of the character we're dumping into Seattle's society. So the background, this unreliable narration, as you said, it's left for the player to hint at, but the decisions that the player makes about Phyre's background will be reflected by other characters in the game, and that might affect them differently if they have a particular opinion about it.
So
I mean,
I
it's very
guess you
interesting
can
referring to
ruin someone's life,
the
essentially,
gunslinger coming to town.
and say
The
they're friends
legend
with
is built
another
because of
kindred in the
distance
city.
in those kinds
That kindred
of
probably won't like you as
scenarios.
much.
The stories
I'm
don't
just
reach
guessing.
each town accurately. Here you're playing with time. If you're hundreds of years old, there's very few people that can confirm or deny what you've done. And so as you make these decisions, as we move towards the end of the game, will they come together to produce different endings?
Yes, I think it's fair to say that the choices you make for characters, the way that you portray Phyre, the way that you behave around other people, the story ends in different ways. And obviously I don't want to spoiler any of those.
So there's
but
probably a
the way
quote
that you
unquote
affect Seattle
good ending, a
long
better
term,
ending, an
and
altruistic,
what will
more
become of some of the
humane
characters,
ending.
if you left
And
them
then there's
alive,
probably
with
more
your
of an
money gone,
evil
will
succumbing to the
change
beast,
the story of
or
Seattle,
succumbing to the monster
going on
within,
from that
being
point.
the monster ending.
I did say that there'd be sneak peeks. They did say there'd be previews. So I will say, in Vampire the Masquerade, there are things that are much worse than death. And in this game, there will be those options. I have to ask, can players expect a yellow taxi?
Oh, we're more about
Yellow
Uber
taxi.
these days.
Yellow
But
taxi.
you don't get a lot of taxis around.
Which is
in
a
Seattle
reference
with
to
a
the taxi
yellow
from
in the
Bloodlines
middle of a
1 that
snowstorm,
has
but
Kane as the driver.
Let's wait and see.
Well, there's been a
Let's wait and
coffin
see.
full
That was
of
not a
reveals
confirmation.
this evening.
Kane not confirmed.
And very, very
shame.
soon, we will be back revealing the playable clans in Bloodlines 2. Very happy
Okay.
you could join me tonight, Ian. Very happy to be able to give this information to the community. Any last words?
I just want to say that at the Chinese room, we're really looking forward to you meeting our characters, spending a bit of time with them, and seeing how your story develops in Seattle.
Right. Well, that looks like that's the end of that. Sorry if my reactions weren't very enthralling or enthusiastic. I think that this game, this is the last chance it's gonna get, and we're gonna get what we're gonna get, and I'm not trying to knock the Chinese room. I don't know. I think my fire for this game has already kind of dulled. It's burned a bit out. And I don't know why Brian Mitsoda was fired. And, he's not the be-all, end-all best writer in the world. I'm gonna miss the ideas because he writes really good characters. Damsel was supposed to come back, and now I'm wondering, is Damsel coming back? I don't think she is. I don't know. I'm a bit worried about the voice acting. Again, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1 is known for its voice acting, and I understand Paradox and the Chinese Room are making their own game, but guys, why would you not try to go as hard as you can for the voice acting? That's what the game is known for. It's what it's praised for. If you're afraid of the animations being bad, or the story not holding up, or just, overall the combat sucking, well, you know what saved the first game, right? The writing and the voice acting. And I'm just so worried because so far I'm not seeing it. And yeah, I don't know. I hope that they work on it. I hope that they polish it, and I'm just worried because it's coming out next year. So we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for watching this video. If you stuck around this long, consider giving this video a like. If you want to hear more Bloodlines 2 news or are just interested in supporting my channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps out. And I hope that you guys have a good rest of your evening. Thanks for watching this video with me, sticking around. Yeah, have a good night.